Today we're just off the road in Faro, North Carolina here, and Faro's in the northern part of Wayne County. We're talking to Mr. Earl T. Smith, and Mr. Smith is here to tell us of a situation, a significant happening that happened back here in 1961, right? What happened?
61, a B-52 crashed with 2 live hydrogen bombs, Mark 39. Each bomb were 3.8 megaton, which is equal to 3.8 million tons of TNT, to break it down to explain what the megatons are.
Now, if these bombs were live bombs,
live
this was
bombs,
live
yes,
bombs, and
live
if they had
bombs.
gone off, we would certainly be knowing about it.
Right, yeah.
But they didn't.
They didn't, so thank God. There'd be none of us still around if it had.
All right, January 24th, 1961, where were you at that time?
I was at home in bed asleep, and I was on standby. There was 4 of us on the base, and each one of us had to have standby, one night a week at least.
So you were in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force at Seymour Johnson. So I got the call from the tower, and they called and said, B-52 tail number 1087, I believe. I could be wrong on the number of the tail number. Said coming in with fuel leaks in the Bombay area. The plane hadn't crashed at that time. So I threw my clothes on and didn't take time to lace my boots. I just wrapped them around and headed for the base. Well, when I got to the base, they determined that the plane had crashed. So I jumped on. General Moore had a helicopter waiting, and in any broken arrow exercise is what this was called, once a nuclear bomb is involved in an accident. I jumped on the helicopter with him. Well, we kept all I'd only been out of EO Disco 9 months, and we kept all our materials, instructions at headquarters. And so I didn't have time to get that, didn't have time to get a radioac instrument or anything. I just jumped on board the helicopter. We fly out, and with the light showing down, all of a sudden, of course, it was already lit up anyway, just everywhere you looked. There was fire, the sky was lit up. But I look and I see the bomb over here in a tree, the parachute. And I thought, oh my God, where's the other bomb? Where's the other bomb? So General Moore tells the pilot, don't get too close. I said, no, so better get me close as you can. And then General Moore tells me, he said, we got to get permission from Atomic Energy Commission before you touch it. I said, no, sir. No, sir, we don't have to do that. And so I proceed, and the bomb had a little sheet of ice on it where it fell through the atmosphere. And I always carried a little pouch with me, and I'd scraped off the ice because we'd taken them apart and put them back together enough, we could do it almost blindfolded. So I got the access door open and seen that was safe, so it was all right. Well, I belonged to SAC, Strategic Air Command, and they had what they call a SAC 2-man policy. It had to be at least 2 men to work on a nuclear bomb. So I knew I had to wait for help to come before we could do anything else to that. Well, finally, I don't remember, seemed like an hour and a half, so 3 more men came out. Mm-hmm. Sergeant Fletcher, Sergeant Fincher, and a Sergeant Tobler Evers. And I opened it back up, and I believe it was Sergeant Fincher reaches in and disconnected 2 black leads. Now, they had to be done in exact sequence, or it would set the bomb off. So we had to wait 3 minutes, and then I believe it was Sergeant Evers reaches in, connected the other 4. Well, that officially made that bomb safe. There wasn't really anything else to do to that bomb except load it on a trailer and haul it back to the base.
But it was not safe up to that point.
It wasn't safe up to that point. But as I said, it just needed one more thing. But it could be, they were designed so that, and they had to have parachutes because they would blow a plane out of the air if it didn't have safe separation time. That's why they let them down by parachute. So they put this procedure in so that if one fell in enemy territory and they were going to try to disarm it, automatically what they try to do is quickly get all 4 cables, and if they do the other 2 immediately after the first, then it explodes. So it was, but officially then, that bomb was safe. So I called the base, saw somebody up there and make arrangements for them to come in with a flatbed to move that. Well, about 8 hours later, Lieutenant Jack Ravel and his team from SAC headquarters, they fly in. Of course, there wasn't anything else to be done to that bomb. but there were some things that it was done but I don't go along with. But anyway, that was their problem. But anyway, that was taken care of. But then later on, when the bomb went underground was found, then that's when the digging started. Of course, the SAC team, EOD's team, did assist in getting the afterbody part back with the parachute part, and they got it out. And that's where I came in again to get down in the hole. I was a low-ranking man on the totem pole.
So you had to go down the hole?
I had to go in a muddy hole.
Right.
And believe you me, it was cold and muddy. So I was down digging for parts, and I would tell them what I was feeling under the mud, you know, different parts of the lineman plate. And then when I got to the nuclear pit, I picked it up and pulled it up between my legs, and whoever it was, we'd hand stuff up to the next man at the next level. I made the statement, well, I don't guess I'll have any more children, you know. And so, but
a nuclear pit?
that's they have the new bombs have a system to where they have like a tritium bottle that injects a fluid into the pit, but that's what causes, you have detonators all around the pit, in which we secured all of those. Those were safe, about 32 I think on those. And what that does, those detonators puts a squeeze on that ball, and that's what causes the nuclear detonation. And the squash, which is out here somewhere, it puts a squeeze on that. Once that goes off, it puts a squeeze on that, where you get your hydrogen explosion.
You say that the squash is still in the field?
Oh yeah, it's still out there. It's still out there.
How dangerous is that?
It's not dangerous, but even though it's uranium and everything, uranium's found out of the ground anyway. That's where you get it. So that kind of eases my mind about the fact. But now I was concerned for a long time about the water, water factor, and it got to where some of the people I heard wasn't drinking water. It had well water, but they put a spigot on one. They sunk a lot of jet wells, and I let some water in a cup one time and drank it from some of the old timers we brought in, and they seen I drank it, so they finally started drinking water. So
well, this groundwater's tested regularly, isn't it?
Yeah,
Still.
That's what I understand. But like I said, there's no concern for that part is still out here. Although they spent probably $1 million trying to dig for it, because this hole got to be so big. I remember looking down and seeing a bulldozer, several pulling turn pulls in the bottom of it.
Down in the hole?
In a hole.
The hole was that big?
It was a humongous hole, hole.
Now the plane went down right over here behind us.
Right in here behind us, yeah.
Okay.
So, Sergeant Barnish and Major Rickards was still in the burning plane there. Major Shelton, they couldn't quite figure out what happened. He fell, and they found him in a tree. I understood he was impaled with a limb, but they claimed he was dead before he left the cockpit, and we couldn't figure out. Well, I had a lot of time while they were digging, and I found a rod, one of the ejections from an ejection seat, and it had a bend in it. So they got to studying it, and they thought, well, maybe that thing slapped him in the back of the head with the G-forces. So it was never known for sure, but they couldn't really figure out what killed him. But there was a humorous side. I don't know where it came from, but it's nothing I made up because I heard it. But they said there was a sharecropper. I seemed like to say it was a black sharecropper. It looked up and saw that bomb. The bomb that fell here with that big parachute, and he thought the Russians were invading.
Oh my.
So he grabbed a pound of cornbread, some milk, and some blankets, and they said they found him 7 hours later when they was looking for Major Shelton's under some bushes out there. So, and then there was another religious couple. I heard them say they looked up. I think one of the engines someplace was burning by the Edmund's house, I guess, or Edmondson. They said, I think the Lord's come because he's up at Mr. Edmondson's house now. So there were several things that I can remember, But.
Well, let me ask you now, the plane had actually started breaking up before it came
right.
into the ground. So it was actually flying into the ground already on fire.
It was already on fire. There was parts everywhere. Engines over, like I say, I can't remember just where, because I was so excited at the time. I was wondering what I was doing here.
Now, the first nuclear bomb that fell, it fell off the wing. How far was that from here?
It was the first one was seemed like right over in here. There was a tree. The tree's gone. But it was a tree, I remember that. And then I remember the other party went underground, was over in this area, somewhere over here.
All right.
Like
How long were you out here?
I was out here the first week, 96 hours. The next week, like 88 hours. And the third week, about 80-something. And every week, it was more than double time, because I was out here 3 months that they were digging for parts. As a matter of fact, I got a divorce. Because when military families have a hard time staying together anyway. And when you're under that much stress, been eating old cold sandwiches, what have you, I'm sure I wasn't easy to live with. But, and finally we did. It was a kind of thing I'll never forget, when we had a field kitchen finally come out. And the first thing to cook was some beef stew. Well, the smell of the burning bodies here, something I never could get used to. But that's the first thing that hit me. And for about 5 years, I couldn't eat any beef stew. I mean, that was a horrible part. And having to work because it was so close to where this had burned, where the bodies went up. So.
Now, the survivors, do you know how many there were? Do you recall?
Yeah, there were five survivors, right. 5 survivors. And one miraculously got out without a ejection seat, which is never happened before.
Really?
Never happened. And after that he dove through a chute that was where somebody else had already ejected out. But
so there were what, 3 or 4?
Three that perished, and it was 2 what perished, and then Major Shelton. That his chute, these chutes automatically open after 15,000 feet, I think it is. Excuse me. But just the 3. The rest of them made it out alive.
So have you been in contact with any of the survivors at any point?
No, I've tried to find them over the internet and everything, and I've had other people look, and I don't know where I understood Sergeant Fincher had passed away. That's what I heard. I'm not sure, but the others I hadn't had any contact. Sergeant Fincher was originally over in the Charlotte area, and Sergeant Elvers was from down in Alabama somewhere, I don't remember, and Sergeant Fletcher was from Johnson City, Tennessee. But,
this
but
crash...
they're the one that get the credit. And I want it clear, they're the one that get the credit of actually disarming the first bomb. It wasn't anybody else. But it was Sergeant Fincher, Fletcher, and Evers that, it did the actual doing. It wasn't me. I opened the door, But now the second bomb is one I lifted the nuclear ball out of.
But now the second, there's still something out here, isn't there?
Yes.
What's out here?
It's called a squash. That's what it's called, and it's just.
What is that?
It's just a big cucumber-shaped piece of uranium. I think it's uranium-238 and uranium-235. I could be wrong, but 50 years kind of dulls your memory. But it's still down there, and it's not any harmful effects, as I said, because uranium, you dig it out of the ground anyway. And that thing is deep, because it is deep in the ground.
How long did it take from the first bomb to finding the second bomb?
It seemed like I could be wrong. It was Tuesday, and then I know that it seemed like about 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon is when I lifted the thing, something like that. So it was just a short time before we found out where it was. So my memory's kind of foggy on exactly, how.
How were the fail-safes on the second bomb? Was it ever in any danger?
The second bomb, when we found the fuse in it was armed.
It was armed?
It was armed, yes, sir. It was armed.
So how close would you say?
In my opinion, the only reason we didn't have a major explosion, or that bomb would actually have been a dud. It's probably never been said, but that's from my bank account.
But again, the fail-safe was...
The fail-safe, it was armed. Now, how? Only reason, well, one time we used to have the boys, EOD boys, up from Fort Bragg, and I had taught a little class giving hypothetical situations. And I would give a situation where a B-52 was being refueled by a KC-135 tanker, and there was a collision, and a piece of metal touch two wires at the same time, which got the arm safe switch. And I gave that little theory to one of the Atomic Energy Commission people here, and the one looked at the other and said, well, that must have been what happened, but I don't know. But it got armed, and it was definitely armed when we picked it up.
At any time now, do you reflect back on what happened?
Oh, many times.
You think about it? You see it in your mind?
For 50 years, I more or less I put it out of my mind, because it did concern me there again about the water, because they haven't been tested anything. I worried about the water situation and the people still living around here. But thank God that was all right. And as I said, I didn't know anything more about it, never thought about it till last year. It was really last year when a guy happened to say, we were talking, he was an EOD man, and I said, well, I worked on a job, a big crash in North Carolina. And he looked, you worked on it? I said, yeah. He said, well, have you seen on the internet? I said, no, what do you mean? And it was all on the internet, and that's my first knowledge. They'd already had a reunion here about it and everything. And as I said, I was the first man on the job by several, well, maybe 2 hours or so before even my other friends from the base got out to help me. But of course, this one individual was telling a story how he got in here and all the stuff he did, but that's another story. Because I know the facts of what happened, the first bomb. He had nothing to do about it, electrically safe and disarming, what have you. So that'll straighten that point out.
All right, very good. Well, any final questions, Steve?
Yeah, I got a couple. How old were you at that time?
I believe I just turned 24 years old. My birthday was in December, yeah. And been out of EOD school, I'd only been out 9 months, and I was kind of wondering what I was doing here. I thought, when I graduated the school, I thought, I'll go out and set off my half-pound block of TNT, qualify for my hazardous duty pay, and that's probably all I'd have to do. Wrong. It was.
What did you think when you got the phone call that night?
Well, I knew it was a serious situation when they told me fuel leaks in the Bombay area. And I said something bad wrong there. So I just had a feeling that it wasn't going to turn out good.
How about when you actually got to the site, saw the crash, saw the flames, looked up, saw a hydrogen bomb in the tree, and knew there was another one somewhere about?
Yeah. Well, I really needed to go to the bathroom, in a sense of the word. There was a little bit of fear involved there, but as I said, it was mind-boggling. The main thing, like I said, not seeing the second bomb and knowing it went on the ground, I just knew there was radiation everywhere. That was.
How long did it take to find the second bomb? How many hours after?
Well, that I can't remember exactly. It was probably the next day. They were, like I said, were probing for it and everything, and because by that time the SAC team had got involved, and until they had found it and got the afterbody out, which is the big parachute, the big section. After they got that out is when I got more involved, and when they sent me down the hole. So.
How long were you in the hole with the bomb?
Oh, I was in there. That time it was probably 3 days that was finding parts and everything that was getting stuff out of there before it was safe to come out. Because the main thing was getting all the detonators out, and we got those out and secured them in a box. And
you were in there the entire time?
Yeah,
off and on?
Yeah, off and on.
What were some of the things that were going through your head? I can't imagine being in a hole with a nuclear bomb.
Well, when you're young, you're kind of crazy. I had volunteered, as I said, I'd go down to Fort Bragg occasionally and worked on range clearance, and just loved to, work on them, because they'd have ordnance out there to have what they call a lucky fuse, a barium titanate fuse that could go off. A 2-degree weather change could set them off. And, it was just exciting to go down there and pick them up. They'd been 7 people over the years, I understood, they'd been killed by casting a shadow over them. But these had been laying out long enough, so it was just being young and kind of,
How long were you in the Air Force?
I was in 6 years.
6 years.
I took what they call a 4 short. They offered a deal where they give you a nice sign-up bonus, and I couldn't say no. That money looked good to me, a little low-ranking airman.
What did you do after the Air Force?
I went out, I got in the insurance business, sold insurance, and then I got, years later, I wound up in the country music business in Nashville. I was publicity director for a custom record label there, and we had a few artists. Matter of fact, we had one artist we discovered from North Carolina, Randy Travis. He was one on Little Jimmy Dickens, a few people like that, but I did that for a while, but then mostly in sales of some sort. Sold a lot of motor homes and travel trailers.
Did you
mostly.
ever tell many folks about your experience here in North Carolina?
No, it was just, like I said, kind of out of my mind, and I was almost afraid to talk about it for 50 years, so it just kind of left me.
Was it classified for a long time?
Oh, yes. Yes, they instructed us that you don't talk about it. You don't say anything about it. So that was, and at one time, it seemed like they put out a report that everything was found, and that bothered me, because I knew in my mind, and for a few years I got kind of wild there. I got, I was kind of, I was bitter. I was divorced, and how people go through when they get divorced. But as I said, it kind of left my mind after a while till that guy tells me about it, and I discovered, and some of the things that were told about were done, I started seeing red, real red, because I was irritated, and I got a hold of Kurt. I told him I wanted to set the record straight the way it was, because if the other three guys are dead, I wanted the world to know that they were the ones that really took care of that first bomb. I assisted, but as far as official disarming, they did that, and it needed to be told. So it had never been told anywhere. So
was anything ever said, or any kind of speculation at that time, had the bomb gone off, just what kind of damage?
Well, it's been heard that it would probably kill as many as 25 million people. All the fallout and everything that had one gone off, that it would it had been a terrible destruction. But like I said, it was just a horrifying thing to even think about, a scenario of one going off. But they grounded those bombs, once they found out, what the safety hazards that they had, and by this one getting armed and everything, it was on the ground. But as I said, I was mostly, when I first set foot on the ground, I found out that other bomb was there, I knew I was dying. I had psychosomatic sickness, I had pains in my chest, everything. I thought I was a goner, but I had to keep going. I kept going until I saw an ambulance with that red X, and then all of a sudden I just started feeling better. I thought, well, I guess maybe I'm gonna live, or I have some help, but your mind does that to you. But because radiation, you can't see or feel. So, but I'm still alive at 79, still going. But I want to thank everybody for keeping the story alive, and so that I had the opportunity to tell it exactly like it was, because I was the first man on the scene, the first EOD man, and had, know what was going on the whole time to the very beginning. So I did. That's one of the things I wanted to get straight, and I do appreciate y'all carrying the story and putting the word out there.
All right, Mr. Earl T. Smith of the Faro community, or actually Goldsboro. Where do you live now?
I live in Lincoln, Alabama. As a matter of fact, my house is on the Talladega 500 Speedway Boulevard.
Is that right?
As a matter of fact, if you come camping, I own an RV park called Race Fever right on Speedway Boulevard. So
I'll have to charge you for that commercial.
I know,
right?
I have to give that, but don't edit that out.
All right, very good.
Oh,
Mr. Earl T. Smith of Alabama, formerly of Goldsboro in the U.S. Air Force, here on the site of a 1961 plane crash, the B-52, with nuclear weapons. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.